Welcome back to Love Babz Love Talk on Babz Rawls Ivy. I am delighted this morning to have two of my favorite people from one of my favorite organizations in the city. Composer in residence Joel Thompson from the New Haven Symphony Orchestra and Maestro Alistair Neal from the New Haven Symphony Orchestra. Good morning, y'all.
Good morning, Babs. How are you? Good to see you.
Good morning, Joel. Good to see you. Is your time winding down?
My time?
Yes.
Oh, not yet. No, I've got, I have 2 more seasons here.
Okay.
So it's going to be, yeah. There's a long, many things ahead of us.
I'm just checking, making sure. Hey, Joel.
Hello, how are you?
So I was at the Stetson Library when you had that wonderful conversation with Judge Graves about your upcoming piece that you're doing on Sunday with the New Haven Symphony Orchestra at the Lyman Center, Awaken the Sleeper. And I just so enjoyed that conversation so much. And I just wanted y'all to come on and talk a little bit about what this concert means, what it looks like, and why the 2 pieces of music that, the premiere of this one piece of music based on, influenced by James Baldwin, and then the second piece of music, I guess from 1905 or something. So I want to hear the thinking around this particular production we're going to listen to on Sunday.
Joel, would you like to start about talking about To Awaken the Sleeper, and then I can sort of pivot to Shostakovich, or however you would like.
Sure, yes. Well, To Awaken the Sleeper is a piece for orchestra and orator, or narrator, I suppose, featuring Baldwin's text being spoken with the orchestra providing a musical backdrop, almost like a concerto for Baldwin's words. And a lot of them are taken from No Name in the Street, his 1972 piece of nonfiction, 2 essays, Take Me to the Water to Be Baptized. And some other excerpts are from his letter to Angela Davis, also from the 70s, and one from his last speech at the National Press Club that he gave in 1986, the year before he died. And all of those excerpts are speaking to ideas of power in the United States, of identity, of justice. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to sort of explore those words. And in this case, in this performance, I will also be the orator, and I will practice delivering those words. I will go back to being a performer, which I have a little anxiety about, but I'm looking forward to it. I think Alistair can talk a little bit more about the juxtaposition of my work with Shostakovich, though.
I'm happy to do that. And to be honest, I can't remember, this is a chicken and egg situation, which came first in my thinking of these 2 pieces, but very quickly it became apparent to me that that they belonged together because they do have a fair amount of DNA in common, not specifically musically, but more in their message about, as Joel says, in a sense, speaking truth to power and confronting some pretty stark realities. And for Joel's piece, it didn't make sense to just stick it haphazardly in the middle of a conventional program with a Tchaikovsky symphony or a Brahms symphony in the second half. Context matters, particularly with a work as powerful as To Awaken the Sleeper. So it sprang to mind that I think in many ways an ideal pairing will be this incredibly dramatic and powerful symphony by Shostakovich, his 11th of 15 that he wrote. And this is symphony number 11. It's subtitled The Year 1905, though it was actually written in 1957 or premiered then. But it deals with one of the formative events of the Russian Revolution, which of course happened in 1917, 12 years later. But part of the brewing storm that preceded that was that revolution was this event that took place in 1905 in St. Petersburg at the Winter Palace, the palace square of the Tsar's residence. In a bitterly cold day in January, a group of citizens had assembled to plead with the Tsar for better living conditions. Things were pretty dire. And instead of being met with a sympathetic ear, they were met with gunfire, and there was a massacre. And so this symphony charts in chilling detail through the course of an unbroken hour and its four movements, the events of that day in January, the gathering of the crowd in the very still and frigid square, the palace square, the growing outrage and or anxiety and fervor of the crowd wishing to petition the Tsar, and then and this is the second movement, the actual massacre by the Tsar's troops of the crowd. The third movement is a slow, mournful lament, which contains more than a trace of the seeds of anger. And the last movement is a call to action, channeling the rage into deeds. And basically, it's a warning. It ends with an incredibly fast, like pounding of horses' hooves, closing part in which there's a big chime that's sounding the alarm, and it's basically saying we're coming for you sooner or later.
Wow.
So, a little light entertainment at the symphony.
Listen, the New Haven Symphony Orchestra is probably the most progressive organization in the city right now. Who knew? I mean, I love the way that you can tell that you can use this music, or this music can tell us history in a way that I don't think anything else can. Like, it just adds to the richness of why we study history. But to do it through this medium is extraordinary. So now I'm starting to understand why the Baldwin piece makes sense, right? At least, should I be thinking of it that way, Joel? Like, should I be seeing how this lays on top of each other?
Yes, I feel that the piece To Awaken the Sleeper, I mean, even in the title, is a call to action. It's an attempt to awaken the sleeper. Even though the first lines that I will say as the orator in the piece is, "We cannot awaken the sleeper." Baldwin is sort of expressing this fatigue with trying to wake up people to the truth, but seeing that it's falling on deaf ears a lot of times, or sort of confronting a wall of willful ignorance. Even though he expressed that fatigue throughout his entire career, he tried to continually awaken the sleeper, tried to call people to action through his fictional works, through his nonfiction works. And in giving this piece now at the Lyman Center, it's a chance for me to amplify his words and also be a similar call to action that, like at the end of the Shostakovich Symphony. It might not be one to call to arms or anything, but it's really just a call to look around and see where we are in our progression as a society. Yeah, I think the juxtaposition does make a lot of sense, for sure.
So, Alistair, when you think about the season, did you know that this was the work that Joel was going to submit, and then you build something around it? Or, like, how do you all decide that Sunday would be the day that you do this piece for this reason? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, and it's a little bit more haphazard. I don't just sit down one day and think from scratch. I have a complete blank slate in my head. What are we going to do next season? There are all sorts of ideas that are germinating and happen during the course of conversations. So with Joel, we have been talking about this for a while, because this is now the New England premiere. We're part of the commissioning process. So it's been on my radar. But, as far as the rest of the season goes, it's more it's a more gradual process, and no one thing happens all at once. And this season in particular, since 4 of the concerts are going to be conducted by guest conductors who are being viewed as the person to come after me. So there was that part of it as well. They're not just my programs, but I'm just in that sense I was kind of supervising just overall, so that for instance, that not all of the guest conductors would conduct a Beethoven symphony in case that was their preference. So I had to make sure that there was a balanced diet throughout the season, which actually ended up being a very smooth process.
Wow. I love the way that this is thought out I mean, you do have some rules or parameters in which to work from that that you think about how this music marries to each other. So Joel, what was it about the Baldwin words that inspired you? I mean, you could have picked anybody, to be inspired, but what was it about the James Baldwin words that moved you?
Yes, I think for me, reading James Baldwin in the wake of George Floyd's death, as I was trying to find solace in various artistic media, I think happening upon Baldwin's words again, and seeing the words that he wrote so long ago and how relevant they were, I felt less alone. I felt that here is someone who's feeling exactly what I'm feeling, this friction between a deep pain and a deep grief in how this country is treating certain identities, and not allowing justice or accountability to happen with these communities, but also on the other side, a deep love for this country, and also a love for the possibility that this country contains. And I think that love, as I describe Baldwin's love as an impossible love, I think that's really what drew me to Baldwin's words. There are so many expressions of anger, and just righteous anger, and that I could turn to in the wake of all of the chaos of 2020 and the conversations of racial reckoning in its wake. But there's something about Baldwin holding space for that righteous anger, while also, in the other hand, believing in the experiment of American democracy and hoping for a positive outcome, that I think particularly drew me to his words, and a chance to amplify those in the context of the Classical Music Hall, which, outside of New Haven Symphony Orchestra, it can be quite conservative in its outlook, or in its culture. And so to provide a space for Baldwin's, galvanizing and soul-stirring words in that context was, a wonderful chance for me to, take a risk, see what happens.
I love it. So, Alistair, American theater is changing. The audience is changing. The demographics are changing. Everything is changing. Do you see that in symphonies? Are they starting to sort of understand the audience that they are accustomed to playing to is changing, and how do you adjust to that?
I think it probably depends on where you are. I will say that from what my understanding from our box office, that 25% of our audience on Sunday are people that have never been to the symphony before.
Whoa.
So I find that tremendously encouraging. Also, a little bit, if you think about it for just 1 second, a little bit stress inducing, because it means that we have a chance to connect, and you only get one chance to make a first impression. And this is, I'm hoping that the fact that this is a very unconventional kind of program will actually work in our favor. So it might dispel some of the old myths about classical music and about orchestras. But that remains to be seen. We'll find out around 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. whether this is connected or not. But I'm optimistic that the strength of the music will of both of these incredible pieces will land where we're hoping it will.
So when you see a 25%, 25% of the audience has never been to the symphony before, does that give you opportunity to think forward about maybe we could do some more creative things, and maybe I could introduce some other kind of music? And
most certainly, it is. It's a great challenge to have. I will say there's a tremendous amount of interest in particularly in Joel's piece. I think that is bringing a lot of these people into the hall, and that's great. But I mean, it does absolutely lay the challenge at our feet, to say how can we continue to engage with our community? How can we bring in new audiences and share the love that all of us have with our art form to make it even more relevant for the 21st century?
So Joel, do you feel the weight of representing a lot of things in this role as composer in residence? We young kids see you, I see you, we see you, and of course we're proud and all that. But does that help you engage new audiences and help you sort of share to people that, you know what, this music is for you too?
Yes, I mean, I definitely think about writing music that makes my community proud, and I definitely feel that duty to be a positive representation of my community, all of the intersections of my identity. But in the end, composition for me is a practice of personal expression. The music that I write is going to be, my biggest priority is honesty. I want my music to be true to who I am and true to how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. And I think by holding true to that priority, to that principle, I hope that I can be definitely an inspiration for, young Black kids thinking about entering this space as creatives in any artistic field, really. It's, I had to see that it was possible to be a Black composer in order to really pursue. I'm so glad that I saw Alvin Singleton's Praisemaker played at the Atlanta Symphony when I was in high school, and I saw a guy with tight curly hair like me walk out on stage and take a bow afterwards. So I understand the importance of those moments of representation, but also I love the fact that Alvin got to write whatever music that he wanted to write. There was so much freedom in what he wanted to do, and that inspired me to pursue my own. And I hope that I can be that inspiration for anyone else who is wanting to do that. And that's why I'm so glad a part of my duties as composer in residence with New Haven Symphony Orchestra is to work with high school age composers. And just this past Tuesday, we got one of our monthly meetings at ECA, and we're exploring clarinet quintets this season, and they're working on learning about the instrument and fine-tuning their skills that we've been working on for the last season. And so I'm so glad that I have this opportunity as composer in residence, for sure.
Oh, I love it. So Alistair, do you feel some responsibility toward educating an audience about the richness and the richness of other composers that are not white out there? Do you feel that responsibility?
Absolutely. I mean, this is all part of, I think, a long overdue movement I call it broadening the stage, making the stage larger, more generous, more open to all sorts of voices that haven't been heard. And I feel that is critical to, certainly to my role here as music director and in other places too. And I'm hopeful that people will see it that way, that we are making, you know, real strides in that regard. It's never enough, but yes, in answer to your question, I very much feel the responsibility to carry this mission forward. And so we all win because there's fantastic music.
Oh, it is amazing music.
So many sources.
But when you put some unknown or little known music on the playlist for a concert, how much time do you have to spend trying to explain, or do you just let the music speak for itself, and then it's like, oh, by the way, African American composer or whatever? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you tell them first, or do you let them experience the music, or like how does that? I know what you did for Miss Price. Like you gave us a whole education about Miss Price, and then you backed it up with several concerts of Miss Price's work, right? And that was a big deal. That was a real learning experience for a lot of people. So I mean, talk to me about how do you do that? How do you put this music together to share new works that would probably go unheard?
Well, broadly speaking, it's purposeful. Like I look at a season and go, okay, how is our balance of the traditional canon with underrepresented composers? And I just keep myself disciplined to make sure that that there is a real balance. But part of it is just organic at this point. I'm just interested in accumulating. There's so much with the internet. There's so many sources that you can't say, well, I wasn't aware that existed anymore. You can't use that as an excuse. That's just laziness. So keeping myself open to hearing new voices and exploring further some of the voices that we've already brought. For instance, this is the third season that I programmed in a row with more of Florence Price's music. At the last concert, which is absolutely a celebration of Black composers throughout. All of the composers on that last program are Black. We're playing her piano concerto in one movement, as well as this reconstructed, reorchestrated Helen Hagen's piano concerto. So, you know, these are all, it honestly is just a natural thing at this point for me. I don't have to think too purposefully about it, because I know that it's just where my instincts are intending to go.
So Joe, talk to me about inspiration and because we never think of classical music as modern music, but I'm wrong in that, right? Because classical music, if you write a classical tune today, it's modern, but its roots are in, you know, some other time. But so how are you inspired? Like, what brings you inspiration, and what moves you? Can you hear a piece before you write a piece when you are inspired by something?
Yeah, I guess my inspiration is a lot of times, yes, I'm in dialogue with historical music of the Western European art music tradition, for sure. I'm listening to Bach, and I'm listening to Beethoven and Rachmaninoff and Shostakovich, and all of these, you know, canonic figures. But I'm also inspired by other artists making music at the same time as I am. You know, I'm inspired by Esperanza Spalding and Janelle Monáe and you know, just the things that they're doing in their particular idioms and genres and art forms are inspiring to me as a fellow artist, just in dialogue with a different tradition. And I'm also working towards, I think, trying to bring all of the musical styles and rhythms and melodies and harmonies that represent myself into the classical music space, and hoping that it still remains classical music or maybe not even caring so much about those genre designations, and just wanting to again prioritize honesty in my expression. And so I really consider it to this craft to be a practice. I want the music that I create 20 years from now to be different from the music that I'm creating right now. Because I want it to represent my growth as a human being, as an artist. Yeah, and so I find inspiration from other artists who are prioritizing the same values that I am in my music. And like the few that I listed I think do the same. And I also wrote my thesis on Nina Simone and her 1964 concert in Carnegie Hall. And there's another artist that provides inspiration for me. And, you know, she's singing I Loves You Porgy one second, and then Lorraine Hansberry pulls her to the side and said, "What are you doing for the revolution?" And then she starts writing Mississippi Goddam. And so, you know, there's you know, a parallel. There's a clear inspiration from Nina Simone to what I'm trying to do with my work. Yeah.
So on that same vein, I mean, would you, as a composer now, could somebody pull your coats the same way that Lorraine Hansberry pulled at Nina Simone? Like, could somebody say, "Joe, what are you doing for the people or the revolution or whatever it is?" Like, could you hear that and could you respond in kind? I mean, I think you can and you are, but I'm just saying, like, that's a very distinct thing.
The foundation of good composition in my mind is listening. Listening to oneself, listening to the community in which you're presenting the art. And I'm always open to any criticism or praise. And if one, you know, luminary in their field pulls me aside and says, I would like to hear more, you know, an exploration of that, I will consider it, assess it according to my own set of values and morals. And then I might, you know, so like I welcome a moment like that. I think with Nina Simone, she was singing jazz standards at the same time at her premiere at Carnegie Hall, while Dr. King was imprisoned in Birmingham. And there's the sort of friction between reality and the sort of art space that Nina was occupying. I think it was necessary for Lorraine Hansberry to awaken the sleeper in Nina Simone's artistry. And she did definitely wake up. In fact, she got sort of pegged as making only civil rights music for a time. No more jazz standards, but, you know, she found other ways to be subversive, singing like "Black is the color of my true love's hair." And it means something different when a full Afroed Black woman is singing that on some of the most hollowed stages around the country. This tune of completely different origin from her ethnicity. So yeah, there are ways to be subversive. There are ways to explore honesty in one's artistic expression. And I'm trying to find my way as I continue to do so.
So, Allison, tell me, what still excites you about this music, about classical music, and being the maestro to classical music?
I don't really think of myself as maestro. Just you know, I wave my arms around. I mean, I think that's starting to be a little bit of
no, because I can't do that. So
well,
that's a skill set that you have that is hard worked for. I don't have that skill set. Like, I couldn't get up there and conduct nothing. But you get up there and you do this work and people are excited by it. Tell me, what still excites you about this?
I'll tell you. It's the fact that it's in a perpetual state of renewal. This is music that has classical is such an unwieldy, of all the bad terms that could be used to describe this art form, I suppose classical is maybe the least bad, but it's still, it's still so hard to find the right kind of term. But whatever it is that we're talking about, it stretches back hundreds of years. And if you're re-examining a piece by Mozart or Bach or Schubert, or whether it's that or creating a new tradition, as we are with the New England premiere of Joel's piece, it's part of a continuum. It's part of this huge, unbroken chain of music, and there's always something new to explore. You know, I'll be doing Joel's piece for the first time on Sunday, I'm quite certain it won't be the last time I'm doing it, but whatever the point is that I do the next performance, I'll be looking at it with fresh eyes, and I know that I'll be able to extract something new from it. And that is a beautiful thing.
Right. And so, Joel, same question for you. What still excites you? Like the fact that you can create new music, bring your own spin to this genre of music. What excites you about that?
Well, I have a deep love for this genre. I grew up listening to a lot of it, and I turn to it for solace, some of the goodies and the oldies. But at the same time, I think I love the collaboration aspect of it. I'm also composer in residence at Houston Grand Opera, and I'm, excited about, you will probably be able to tell my penchant for drama when you hear my piece on Sunday. But working with singers and working in a very dramatic medium and getting to explore new mediums of storytelling through this music is what excites me now. And the highly collaborative nature of it. As a composer, all I do is put thoughts on a page, but the music doesn't really live until, Alistair studies it and looks at it and has an orchestra and, conducts it. And I don't make a sound at all on stage, but they make the music, and I just love that process. And this Sunday, it will be a little different because I will also be performing, which is...
You will be making a sound.
I will be making a sound. I'll be following Baldwin's score and regurgitating his words. But I'm excited for that particular collaboration and the thrill of it all. But also, it's... I agree with what Alice just said. There's this sense of renewal that even though the idiom is quite old and hundreds of years old, there's something that I can say now with this music that hasn't been said before. So that's what's really excites me about classical music.
I appreciate that. And Alistair, I appreciate that now I think of the symphony as another medium of storytelling. Whereas I didn't think of that way before, and I'm glad that I can see it that way. And I think that's the trajectory of my learning about this music, that I come to see it as another way to tell stories. So thank you for that.
Exactly right.
So Sunday is the day at Lyman. How's that relationship going? How's it being in that space for this music?
We're very, very happy and grateful to SCSU for giving us our home. The season we've just started, literally last night was the first rehearsal of the new season. So it was kind of the first day back at school. We're all excited to be back in class together, and we're adjusting to the acoustics, getting to play the hall. That's a gradual process. That's just the first of 4 rehearsals this week, and then of course the rest of the season as we play ourselves into the new space. So there's just a lot of exciting possibilities ahead, that's for sure.
Well, I am grateful for your time this morning. It is always a pleasure to see you, Alistair. And it is so nice to have you here, Joel. It really is a nice feeling to have you in community with us. So I'm looking forward. I will be there, of course, because I love the symphony. It's one of my favorite things. I tell people, don't sleep on the symphony. It's a good opportunity for date night. It's a good opportunity to gather with your girlfriends. It's a good opportunity to hang out on a Sunday afternoon. So I'm going to be there, and I can't wait to hear this music. So thank you all for being here this morning.
Thanks, Babs. Great to see you always.
Great to see y'all. So thank you so much. So if y'all have not gotten your ticket, I don't think they're fully sold out yet, but make your way over to the New Haven Symphony Orchestra website, get you some tickets, and show up on Sunday at Southern Connecticut State University at the Lyman Center for Performing Arts. You will not be disappointed. You will not. It's my favorite thing to go to the symphony now. So I will see y'all. Thank you so much for your time this morning, good people.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Harry, play us out, and we will see y'all tomorrow on Friday. Bye now.
Ooh.